Yeah, what a pleasure to be back this afternoon, and I'm really delighted to introduce two extraordinary people. One, of course, is Miami's secret weapon, not so secret, I suppose, Mayor Francis Suarez, the mayor of Miami. He's been an absolutely extraordinary champion of his city and of innovation and technology and how those things can transform cities everywhere. We thought it would be a great idea to ask our friend Shervin Pishevar to sit with him. Shervin is a Miami resident. He's a very, very important venture capitalist, early investor, as many of you know, in Uber, Airbnb, the founder of Hyperloop. And most importantly, he moved to Miami from California 5 years ago, before it was really fashionable to do so. So I think he deserves a round of applause for that. But Francis, Shervin, please come on stage.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John. That's great.
How's everyone doing? Awesome.
Hello.
Give me coffee. Let's go. Everybody, how's everyone doing? All right. Woo. Good. Motion. Let's pretend like we're moving. All right.
So I am a huge fan of our mayor. I think he has been the best mayor that I've seen in this country. Moved here 5 years ago, and our mutual friend Irie introduced us, and we became good friends, and we started brainstorming ideas about how do we make Miami into a tech hub. So we'd had lunches with my friends like Eric Schmidt and Emil Michael and a bunch of others. And you know, the mayor has, I think, made history in terms of becoming the most successful marketing campaign for a city. It has attracted so much talent to this city. It's made a massive difference. So first of all, I just wanted to give you a round of applause for everything you've done for Miami.
Shervin, thank you. I mean, I think everybody knows here how much I love this city. I was the first mayor of Miami in the 127-year history of the city that was born in Miami. It was incorporated in 1897. And the first father and son. So I think there's a uniqueness to having been born in the city, and I think there's a uniqueness to being the son of a mayor that unifies your city with your DNA, right? It's part of who you are. It's part of your soul. And, you know, I really want to thank you because obviously this Miami tech movement didn't start with one person and it doesn't encompass one person, right? This thing started many, many years ago. There's been many, what I call OG iterations, right? And you were certainly one of the OG iteration leaders who came in at an important time right before the How Can I Help movement and really started getting people here that were profound. You mentioned some of those names, right? And it was based on your relationships. It was based on your investments, your success as an investor. And there really, I'll be honest with you, I mean, when the How Can I Help movement started, there was really just a couple of people that were early adopters and believers. You were one of them. You invested in that movement, right? By donating and by also, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the guerrilla marketing campaigns that we did together. Saif Shuf, who's in the front row, also was working at FIU and head of advancement. And he was surfing that tsunami of opportunity with me. We have Gio, who was working in my office at the time, who's now, who are you with now, Gio? With Uber. He's with Uber.
Yeah.
I was going to say his last employer, but I'm glad I just can't keep up with how much he's advancing and how good he's doing. But and of course, we have other members of my staff who are here with me. So I can't do anything without them. They help me maximize my energy, maximize my efficiency, and maximize my time. And I really thank them because they get to help me get the most out of myself for you, which is what I really love. And I really appreciate the feedback.
Just as a case study, when he did the How Can I Help and launched the Miami movement, I remember calling him late, all excited, and started brainstorming ideas of, let's do a guerrilla marketing campaign. Let's buy billboards in Silicon Valley. So we designed a billboard that had his Twitter on it and said, thinking about moving to Miami, DM me. And his DMs blew up. I mean, you had thousands of DMs and many, many people moving to Miami that contacted you and met with you. And that's the brilliant thing is he's the most on 24/7, you are available. Like you text him at any time, to anyone. And everyone I introduced him to, he made time, he met with, he helped recruit. You're both the chief recruiting officer, the chief marketing officer, and the CEO of Miami. It's been like working with an Elon or working with a Travis, like a startup CEO type. And that's what I think is bringing a model of leadership that's different for cities.
Well, first of all, it's an honor to be in the same sentence as some of those people who have obviously redefined the world, transportation, as we know it. I am a Tesla owner, and I'll tell you that for me, it starts with running the corporation well. I was handed for those in the transportation world, a broken down Chevy when I arrived. It was a city on the verge of bankruptcy. We had a $115 million deficit on a $600 million budget. We had to make some very tough choices. We had to cut costs because we didn't feel that we could pass on those costs to our customers who were suffering in the midst of a major financial meltdown. And so we didn't raise taxes. We didn't fire employees, but we had to cut costs dramatically, something that government, certainly at the federal level, has absolutely no idea of how to do, right? And so we did that. We balanced our budget. And today, we have $150 million in reserves, which is the most we've ever had in our history. And we have the highest bond rating ever. And because of that, people want to partner with us. And when you think about big problems, right? When you think about marketing your city, and when you think about the strategy of how to attract people, you've got to be able to solve and tackle some of the big problems. And I can tell you that there is no bigger problem in urban America when you talk about growth, which involves traffic management, and mobility, right? And so we've tried to be disruptive in those spaces with micromobility in terms of scooters. We've tried to look at some incredible technology that Elon is doing, that you've done to efficiently move people around. I've traveled as far as Seoul to go to the Hyundai plant and see what they're doing over there in Korea. And it's a $350 billion annual revenue company. And one of the things that they do is move people, and they try to move people efficiently. So it's when you really are passionate about what you do, I think you dedicate every waking moment obsessively. And if you think of some of those people like people like Steve Jobs, they talk about how hard it is to be successful. It's hard because you have to go all in. Yeah. I have a Steve Jobs quote that Anil's father, Vivek Ranadiv, gave me in one of my Cafecito Tech Talks. He said, I want to make a dent in the universe. Right? And you think about a dent, right, is a small ripple, right? It's a small ripple in a car, right? But when you think about the universe, it's a massive thing. So to make a small dent in a massive thing, right, is from my perspective, is to have meaning. I want to have a meaningful life. I want to live a meaningful life. And to live a meaningful life, you have to impact other people's lives, because that's where you get the sort of leverage benefit of helping others and living a meaningful life.
You said passion, and I think that's your number one leadership trait is the passion you have for Miami. I would fail at this if I didn't ask you about future aspirations. Are you going to run for president?
Well, I have said, and I think I was with a former presidential candidate this week who said, you have to get used to saying, I'm thinking about it, strongly considering it, because there are legal implications when you say, I am running, right? So I am strongly considering it. I am really thinking about it. I'm getting closer. Look, there are some deadlines, right? So, for example, August 20th is the first presidential debate. I'm a Republican, so it's on the Republican side. And you have to back out of that. You have to have 40,000 unique contributions in a what they call a hard money account, or a vote for Francis Suarez for president, or vote for whoever for president account. And you need to have at least 1% in the polls. So those are things that obviously, if I decide to run, would be sort of the short range target to get on the debate stage, because I think what I would want to do is I would be there in large part, number one, because I love this country, just like I love this city. My parents came to this country at 12 and 7. from Cuba. And they were given all the opportunities to be successful, and they were successful. Me and my sisters have been extremely successful. Number two, because I feel like we have created such a unique and powerful ecosystem with all these incredible KPIs, like number one in wage growth, number one in tech job growth, the lowest unemployment in America, 1.7%, extremely low homeless, lowest per capita homicide rate since 1964, and 40% below that number this year. We've done something special, and I believe that is scalable. We talk in tech about scale. We talk in transportation about scale. So I think it's scalable, and I think it can create a generation of prosperity. I think the fact that I'm Hispanic and can grow the party is important, not just for winning an election, but for winning a generation of elections. So definitely, in the abstract, it's something that I really think about because I think that I have a unique value proposition to offer the American people. Everything else is in the devil's in the details, of course. And there's a lot of people out there, and they're trying to get as much volume as they can and present their vision for this country. But I think my vision for the country as president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors is a very compelling vision, right? We want to keep taxes low, we want to keep people safe, and we want to lean into innovation, which is what drives American entrepreneurship and success. And I think if we do that, we'll be ahead of the disruption. And we know, from your investments and from your work in technology, how highly disruptive the world is and how important it is for our leaders, whoever they are, to be able to capitalize on that disruption for our country and for our families.
Absolutely. Just reading between the lines, I take that as a yes.
I'm strongly considering it. I'm thinking about it. I'm really heading in, whatever. I don't know, whatever the legal jargon is.
That's incredibly exciting because I just, our nation at this moment needs hope, optimism, inspiration, innovation, and you represent all of those values. And in many ways, I've said this before, Miami is the most American city, the most diverse city. It's a city of refugees, a city of immigrants. And it's so welcoming. I moved here 5 years ago and I was welcomed with, and many people have felt that. And that's a big part of it is your leadership. And just being able to have that leadership applied on a national basis would make a much bigger dent in the universe than I think any other person.
Well, there's no doubt about that. And I think one of the things that makes Miami unique and why we become such a beacon for hope and prosperity is because we're traumatized by our birth narrative, if you will, right? Yeah. In terms of, a lot of the people fleeing communism and the thought that if you just keep growing government more, if government is the answer to all problems, if you give us all your businesses and give us all your property, don't worry, we'll make everybody equal. And they do. They make everybody equally poor and equally miserable, right? And it's true. In Cuba's a time capsule of the 1960s. Venezuela lost a fourth of its population, 75% of its GDP, and 90% of the people live below the poverty level. This is a country that was one of the wealthiest countries in our hemisphere. So, we are fundamentally American about our approach, right? Where we believe that if you work hard, if you study, you're going to get ahead, right? And that's what that's what distinguishes this country from every other country on the planet. And I think that's what we embody here in this city.
Absolutely. And the other part that's important is if you look at the demographic future of America, in many ways, Miami is perfectly positioned, I think, as the capital of America. And I know you like to say the capital of capital itself. Yeah. That's where I have a lot of hope and inspiration from and energy. I want to switch to one topic that's my pet project, sure. Which is, as Miami has succeeded, the traffic has gotten pretty bad. And as the Hyperloop founder and Uber board member, investor, transportation is very near and dear to me. One thing we've been talking about is creating, obviously you've gotten behind the eVTOL system, so I know you have some things to say about that. And then my pet project is creating a water taxi system for Miami. I see Miami as the Venice of America. And a water taxi system that is on demand and scalable could solve a lot of problems. A lot of people will take the water taxi versus taking a car.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, we studied it at the TPO. I don't know if anyone from the TPO is here. If they are, raise their hands. I don't see anybody off the top. But anyways, the TPO is our transportation planning organization. Every MSA in the country has something called, they call it the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization. And they're basically a planning board that sanctions transportation spending. So we studied this at my suggestion, and we demonstrated through the study that coming from the north to the south and coming from the south to the north, in other words, from Black Point Marina north to downtown, or from, I think, Aventura south to downtown, it would have an approximate 40-minute savings.
Wow.
So, it sounds like there's a business model there, right?
Yeah.
And so, that's a public record, by the way. Anybody can have a copy of that study. Anybody that wants it, reach out to our office and we'll get it for you because it is a public document. And I have had people like you and others recently, within the last week, maybe it was Formula One thing or something. I don't know, some of the traffic from Formula that sort of incentivized people to actually want to move on this. So no pun intended. So I think that's important. But I think I'll tell you this, I've been involved in transportation planning since I started in elected office 13 years. And it's been, I'm not kidding you, the most frustrating part of my public sector existence. And part of the reason why is, and CoMotion is dealing with the root cause of it, right? Which is, it's always been about yesterday's technology and what I call putting lipstick on a pig, right? Like changing something a little bit around, giving it a flashy name, and then saying it's innovative. It's not, right? What's here is innovative. What I just saw outside before I came up here is innovative. Somebody driving a car from a virtual platform, right? Someone with a hydrofoil that flies 20 feet in the air and can get you to the Bahamas as if you're driving a car and you don't even need to be a pilot, right? That changes the dynamic of how you transport people, right? Boring company, boring tunnels, which are at 200 times less expensive than a mile of heavy rail underground, right? Which is, in New York, it's $2 billion a mile. In Las Vegas, it's $10 million a mile, right? That's a 200 to 1 differential. I used to talk about eVTOL, right? Urban air mobility vehicles. And I know that Alexandra Argudin is back there. Alex, are you back there? Can you come out here? Just wave at us for a second if you're back there. There she is. She runs our parking authority, right? She's talking about the idea of having these decentralized parking garages where they're already there. They're built. They're already there. The infrastructure is there. You literally spend $0 on infrastructure. You put a little striping where the thing can land. It lands, it gets up, and it takes you in a decentralized fashion. These parking garages are already pre-planned to the dense places because that's where the parking garages are. And then, of course, things like automation, things like the way cities are planned in 15-minute walkable increments, micro-mobility options like scooters, of course, and then remote work, which means you don't have to go anywhere, right? So, there's so much. And then, of course, things like Amazon, which allow you to buy things from home where you don't have to, actually go to a supermarket. I was actually saw Jeff Bezos this week, and one of the things I told him is, thank you. I haven't had to go to a Walgreens in 3 years. I appreciate that. 10 years. No more deodorant. I just click it. Next. Buy it again. Buy it again.
Exactly.
This. Toothpaste.
So just speaking of this Miami moment, Saturday night there was the Carbone on the Beach event, and I was reminded that there's some experiences that's just only possible in Miami, and the room was filled with Bezos and a lot of other leaders from around the world, entrepreneurs from around the world, and I was just like, even New York couldn't have assembled this group of people. So the momentum is with us.
I agree.
I think what we need to learn is from other cities like San Francisco, where I moved out of 5 years ago, where they didn't get ahead of the systemic problems like affordable housing, like transportation.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about it, if you don't mind, because I think there's two lessons for me. And I want you guys to hear this, because these are two of the most important lessons that I think I can leave you with. Lesson number one, and this applies to business, not just politics. You need to value your customer. Mm-hmm. Whoever that person is, whatever that person does, you need to value your customer. Valuing your customer should be number one. And number two, you need to recognize from a competitive perspective that the world has never been more disruptive. Just when you thought you built or you iterated the greatest technology, guess what? Somebody's coming for you. I'll give you an example. I was with someone who lays fiber. That's what they do, right? And fiber has been proven to be one of the fastest transmission mechanisms for information, for data. And I asked the person, do satellites worry you? Because Satellites are,
Starlink.
exactly.
Yeah.
You can disrupt. You imagine you are a fiber company. All you do is lay fiber all day long, and then somebody comes and, from a satellite can beam it without having to do the infrastructure costs, and everything is just faster, more efficient, right? Cheaper. So it's a scary world in a sense, but in another sense, it's actually quite invigorating. And for someone like me, it's very exciting because it means that the David, right? Because look, every time I talk about Miami's VC pipeline, which grew last year by 287%, okay? And then they'll say, well, but you're still at 6 billion and, San Francisco's at 30 billion or 28 or whatever. And I said, yeah, but they're a little less than they were last year and we're a lot bigger than we were this year. And anyone who can do any sort of trend analysis can tell you that there's only a certain amount of venture dollars in the world. And if a pie is getting smaller and another one's getting bigger and the trend is going that way, guess what? It's not going to take that long before one is bigger than the other, particularly if that pie does not value its customers, does not understand that if you don't have a good quality of life, if you don't have a good taxation policy, if you're not taking care of your people, this is the whole, people are more mobile than ever. They will vote with their feet and they will go to places where they feel valued.
It's amazing. It's 12 seconds left, so that was perfect timing. Just want to thank everyone. Thank you, John, and the CoMotion team for having us here.
Appreciate you.
All right.
Thanks for the time. It's good, man. You're a good interview. Amazing.